Cooperatives were invented in the UK. They're 150 or 250 years old, depending on where you're from. But they are massive in terms of, in one way, £14 billion, 6 million members or 12 million members overall. But there's very few big co-ops. There's an awful lot of little teeny tiny co-ops, so we only make up 2% of UK GDP. And part of the driver for this conference and our work at Cooperative Futures is the idea to try and grow cooperatives as a share of the GDP of the UK.
The cooperative movement is a way of changing the world, because it's something that, in inverted commas, ordinary people can do, can take control of their lives, can work out how to make a living, how to live in a better way, how they can actually change the world for themselves, and in doing so change the world for everybody else. One of the big themes for this year's conference is an initiative that's happening in the US called Evergreen Co-ops, which was inspired by the Basque Mondragon co-ops, and it's what in the UK we call a top-down model, which means someone has a big idea, gets some money, and uses the cooperative model to create jobs and common ownership businesses in deprived communities, and that's happening in Cleveland, Ohio.
The Evergreen Cooperatives are an effort to build green jobs for people who have been unemployed and excluded from the economy in many ways, and organize these companies as being owned by the people who contribute the labor to them. They're worker cooperatives. It's something we haven't had in Ohio before, and we're now up and running with 3 companies and hopefully many more on the way.
The young people who are here today and the younger generation actually see that the cooperative movement should be a natural home for them. We share their values and ethics, and actually they start to think about how we can relate to them and how they can relate to us, and can we work together much more closely than we have been doing.
How do we position this form of economic enterprise that's highly democratic, that's egalitarian in many ways, and have younger people see it as something highly relevant to them and become the next generation of leaders of cooperation in the UK?
So the old school way of doing economic development, which hasn't really worked if you look at the inequality indices in the UK, is to try and recruit big businesses to bring their jobs to your town. And what actually happens is businesses come and businesses go, and what that means for people on the ground is that jobs come and jobs go.
We need to create a situation where people can make their own jobs rather than go and find jobs. There isn't a market out there. Youth unemployment is at a record high, and the cooperative model has a history of people saying, actually, if someone's not provide this for us, we'll go and make it for ourselves.
A group of young people set up a co-op to answer a need. They're much more likely to be successful than if they go into a private business, which has a much higher failure rate currently than cooperatives do, because they will have the combined energy of everybody who's working together to solve the problem and the energy of the co-op movement behind them, rather than trying to do things on their own.